What's up, my earth family, my heart and soul family? This is your brother Jeremiah, and this is indeed the Love Channel. And today, my sole intent is to simply relay to you what I have been inspired to receive in the hope that in time you too will also be inspired. So, without further delay, I'll dive right into the topic of extraterrestrials and what the term really means in this day and time and why. Okay? Now, most of you are very familiar with the word extraterrestrial as being, anything or any being that has entered the Earth's atmosphere from above or from the stars, or any extra thing or being on Earth that traveled from or crash landed from the stars. And this is what most beings on this plane of existence have come to know or think what they know the word means. The old world way of thinking would lead one to believe that the word extraterrestrial would pertain to extra beings or things that have crash landed or traveled here from the stars, correct? Now, I'm not saying that this particular way of thinking is wrong, okay? What I am saying is that this old world definition and the way of thinking is based upon the thoughts and minds and the hearts of those that propagate that the world that you live upon is a spinning sphere ball, spinning at over 1,000 miles per hour. Alright? Did you ever really question that notion of you spinning, of your earth spinning? Did you ever question it, or did you just, like most of us, just accept it as the truth and believed it? Alright? And if so, then you're just like 95% of us. And you've also developed a way of thinking that they would like you to have. And this way of thinking was given to us. This wasn't our natural way of thinking. This was a way that was given to us. It was literally forced upon us without us even knowing. All right? And then when some of us begin to wake up and others don't, a conflict begins. All right? And those that stop believing, and those that woke up, they're seeing the world totally different than how they saw it before. They're seeing absolutely different than the guy that's still asleep. Okay? The way of thinking that they gave you is designed to keep you asleep. This way of thinking is from those that want you and I to believe that the earth is not the center of the universe. This way of thinking, family, is from those that want you and I to believe that the sun is the center of a solar system, and that the earth is a small, insignificant speck of dust floating around the sun and throughout a boundless universe, making the souls of the people that reside in and on that so-called planet Earth even more insignificant and seemingly unimportant. Alright? And as I mentioned in detail in one of my earlier videos, was my Nibiru Revealed video, and if you think that the plane of existence that you live and reside on is a spinning spaceship traveling through space around the sun and throughout the boundless universe with countless other Earths not yet discovered, makes God, the Most High Father and Creator, seem far out of reach of your prayers to Him. Alright? And remember, praying is the art of speaking or asking for something. Prayer is the art of making a request. Prayer is a request, family, and they also say that space is a vacuum and that sound does not and cannot travel in a vacuum. So if God, the Most High Creator, is outside of the atmosphere of Earth and is somewhere in outer space, then your vocal prayers cannot reach outside of the Earth's atmosphere. Remember, sound cannot travel through the vacuum of space, alright? Sound can't travel through a vacuum of space to reach heaven, which is supposedly somewhere out in space. When you ask somebody where heaven is, they say, out there, or, somewhere deep in deep space. Right? Which means that if you and I believe that heaven or God is in or out of space somewhere within a boundless universe that is constantly ever expanding, then God is further away from us with each passing second. This is what they want you and I to believe, family. This is also why you have the belief that the word extraterrestrial means extra thing or being that has entered the Earth's terrain from the stars, as if the stars or the luminaries or the wandering stars are outside of the upper Earth's domain or the upper Earth's terrain, some millions or even billions of light years away, which gives one the impression that the stars are outside and separate from the Mother Earth. This is what you want us to believe. You believe this and even think this way too because of the knowledge that you were taught. And as I spoke about in my last video, Conversation with a Snake, check that out if you haven't. We as a human race have been drawn to the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And it has become difficult to distinguish the right knowledge from the wrong knowledge, or the true knowledge from the pseudo or false knowledge. Alright? And all of it was given us to an age before we could even question it. So when it comes to your plane of existence, the plane of existence that you call a planet, you were fed all kinds of pseudo knowledge from the beginning regarding its size and its shape, as well as its so-called movement or spin or revolution. Okay? And so now you take this so-called knowledge as facts when none of it has ever been proven to you as a fact. Your authorities have brainwashed you since you were children to believe everything they tell you, so that when you come of age and have become so built up with knowledge and have become so brilliant with enlightenment that you would not think twice or even question what you've been taught, because you attained a livelihood based upon what you think you know. Alright? In other words, the last thing you want to even think is that all the years of believing in what your authorities have given you as facts is now pseudo. It's now a fallacy. Okay? This is something many of you cannot face, because it would mean that you would have to change what you have been saying all of these years. Right? Preachers would have to tell their congregation the truth, which could possibly jeopardize losing their huge congregations. Scientists and those who religiously believe in their every word will have to admit that their error that they were selling for the past 50 plus years would also force them to shut down and lose all of their billions in funding. Alright? So this is one of the reasons why when anyone who has some influence mentions anything about the possibility of a flat earth, the trolls come out in droves, and they come out of the woodworks. Alright? These trolls are usually people that have nothing better to do. Sometimes they're paid to do it. You know, they got nothing better to do with their time, but will somehow find a way to attempt to belittle the message of anything that suggests to go against that their God scientists have taught them. Alright? The science community isn't trolling, family. It's certain followers and believers that will raise up and fight against those that don't agree. Oftentimes these trolls, right, they don't even question their authority figures. They don't question anything they've been taught, since childhood. They just accept it and then want to go to war with you if you disagree. And the interesting part is that they will want you and I to prove our points of view, but cannot prove anything that their so-called authorities have never proven, except for some fake photos. Alright? They do this, family, because they have always belittled the intelligence of the common people. And because they have billions of dollars at their disposal, they can propagate effectively to make the general public believe anything they portray in the media. So those of us that do not have the huge monetary budgets are ridiculed and we're easily cast aside and forgotten. Alright? This is their way of fighting against the truth, family. Using huge budgets and letting their following trolls to do the dirty work for them without getting involved firsthand. Alright? So, what does all of this have to do with extraterrestrials? Well, it has a lot to do with it, actually. So, let's start with the word let's start with the word Earth. And, please, if you're willing, take notes here and do some research on your own, which I hope you've already been doing. Alright, the definition of the word Earth is soil or dirt. Right? The land on which, people reside. The makeup of our human bodies is considered soil. In other words, our planet's name is known as planet dirt or planet soil. Alright? Soil is the basic element of what comprises the living space of human souls on Earth, which stands to reason that if we could actually travel to any other rock planet, such as Mercury, Venus, or Mars, we would encounter another Earth, right? Because remember, in other words, since Earth simply means soil, then if we were to grab a handful of Mars dirt, it would be also considered Earth, because that's Mars soil, so it's an Earth. The same thing applies to Mercury and Venus. Their dirt, according to our English meaning, would be considered Earth. You would be picking up a handful of Earth on Mars. So if you traveled to Venus and Mercury and grabbed a handful of its dirt on soil, by definition, you would be picking up pieces of Earth. And by virtue of this fact, you would also be considered to be standing on Earth. Even though you would be on what you would call Mars, which is also called a rock planet, according to NASA. So, you see how they can fabricate the so-called planets? They use their word magic to confuse you, never really thinking that you'd ever go into their word magic to decipher the secrets that they were hiding in your face in plain sight the whole time. Alright? Listen, family, this makes it easy to fabricate a so-called moon landing or Mars rover exploration by taking photos of remote areas on Earth, fade out the color some type of way to look like a different colored atmosphere with a rocky terrain, and call it Mars. And guess what? You buy it. We all bought it at one time or another. And there's a lot more than that. Another interesting fact to point out is that these other so-called rocky planets have names. It's only your planet that does not have a name other than Earth. These so-called rock planets are taught by your NASA authorities that they have a solid structure. Right? They teach that Earth is also a spinning rock planet with water. So it stands to reason that if they also, if they also propagate that the other rock planets have dirt or soil on their surfaces, that they show so often with Mars and the moon, of course. So with these facts in mind, Mars, for example, would be considered an Earth due to its dirt, due to its soil. And this is why they can manipulate you into believing that they have been to Mars or even the moon. Alright? They both have soil. Alright? Both Mars and the moon, Luna. Right? They both have soil on their surfaces, and NASA can easily generate computer-generated images to portray a pseudo-image of the so-called rock planet on the moon or Mars as well as Earth. So, the point is that according to science, they admit to there being other Earths out there in so-called outer space. They even admit, by way of their semantics, that Earth is any of the rock planets such as Mars, Mercury, Venus, and the moon. However, they have no real or right evidence of any of this being true, except for on the planet we reside. Okay? They say that they have been to the moon, which is simply another Earth on the surface by virtue of its definition. They have not proven this 100% as of yet. The same thing about Mars. They say that they have visited Mars by way of robotics, but no real or right evidence can be found. There's always some doubt behind what they call proof. So, this leads us back to the word extraterrestrials or extraterras trial, which is simply extra Earths on trial or extra terra on trial. You see, they've gone so far as to fabricate stories and images of the heavenly space, attempting to make you believe it without any real evidence, experience, or reason, and have been doing so since time immemorial. So, what's on trial here is the belief that there are extra Earths out there in outer space. Right? And if there is such a thing as outer space, notice in their word magic that they have many of us saying phrases like out in space or in outer space. Okay? When we say simple phrases like this, family, we tend to send the mind in some far off imaginary place, millions and billions of light years away. When in truth, space is in. Okay? The out is an illusion word to make you overextend your imagination. No matter how far out you are in space, you are still in space. And space is within. The further out in space you go, the closer in you are to Earth. The upper and lower regions both interconnected as one whole, as above, so below. The ancients, they told their version of creation as the earth plane that we live upon now being split into two parts, the upper and the lower half, the heaven and the earth. The heavens will be considered the upper region, the upper covering of earth, the top half, Tiamat, earth, and the living space that we all reside and move about would be considered lower earth. As above, so below. The Bible states the heavens or the upper earth region serves as a covering of its lower counterpart, keeping the waters from mixing with the waters below. So there's waters above and there's waters below. And there's a firmament or a division that's keeping the waters above from mixing with the waters below. Alright? Excuse me. And this is in the Bible. The Bible also states that the earth has a foundation and is stable and unmovable. Okay? So many seem to want to dismiss these biblical statements as pseudo or false due to, their belief in the heliocentric spinning earth model, which doesn't support the flat earth model and its inner cosmogony. Okay? Also, so-called solar systems, galaxies, universes are not somewhere in outer space as we have been led to believe, but all are a part of the enclosed upper regions or the upper covering of the earth covering the lower plane. So, if there are other earths, there is no real evidence of their existence, and man has not reached the capabilities to travel past the so-called Van Allen's belt, which means that man has never landed on the surface of the moon. It means that a rover never traveled to the surface of Mars. The only evidence that is presented are CGI animations of what they want you to believe is the plane that you live on. The only evidence they present to prove the planet is a sphere is photoshopped images, which is a form of pseudo or false evidence. Your authority figures give you pseudo images of the so-called planets and expect you to believe in their images. They gave you the word planet and they give you the CGIs of other so-called planets, expecting you to believe that they are real and reachable to man by way of his technology. These are the fantasies of mankind, and man by way of his fantasies has led the original tribes of people astray from the path, the right path, or the righteous path. Man has become so vain that he belittles the intelligence of the average person by presenting obvious pseudo evidence to their claims of a solar system and so-called galaxies, and expect us not to recognize their blatant lies. Family, they have concocted some fantastic stories about the universe, and they put a spin to it to make it even more unbelievable. Yet we believe it. However, if one of our own people or a group of our own people present a more factual story with more spectacular events than theirs, they call it pseudo. So for instance, if I speak about the 19th galaxy and a planet called Risk, your authorities and their trolls will call that unprovable and pseudo, right? But those same people will accept that Mars, Mercury, and Venus are real dirt planets with a surface that man can walk upon with the right technology. They don't even realize that their own belief system is comprised of pseudo information. Are planets real? Most believe that they are experiencing an existence upon a so-called planet. Right? Most of us. And their description of a planet is a spinning ball that's traveling at tremendous speeds around the sun. And by default, they expect you to believe that all other so-called planets are spear-shaped spinning balls. I heard one good brother out there by the name of Brother Sanchez refer to the word planet as a plane, right? A plane enclosed within a net. And personally, I would agree. It is an organic plane of existence enclosed in a net, just as the ancient Babylonian Marduk is described as ensnaring the upper half of the newly split into Tiamat. And speaking of Brother Sanchez, if you haven't checked out his channel, he has an excellent channel full of great information, and I advise you to check him out. Alright, so when we take a closer look at the word planet, not only do we see the plane within a net, but we also see the word plant. Okay? Plant as in green plants of nature. A so-called planet cannot properly be called a planet unless it has plants. And plants are grown from the plane that we walk upon, from the soil. Plants can and do produce grains, fruits, and vegetables, which are prime foods for man, grown from the so-called planet or plane. You see? Now, this growth from the soil is what contributes to the life force of man, all right, and all other living beings in nature. And no so-called planet can truly be classified as a planet without plants, because without plants, there is no growth or a way to sustain naturally. Therefore, no planet, right, for life to thrive, or no plants for life to thrive. A so-called planet is something that is living. A moon is not a planet. Mars, Venus, Mercury, or any of the others are not planets unless they are living planes of existence that supports growth, that supports and sustains life. And these so-called planets or luminaries are said to not support life by your present day authorities. And if they truly do not and cannot support life and growth, then they cannot be true planes of existences and deemed not a planet. They are simply luminaries that give off light. You, as a human in the physical form, cannot go there and survive. You are not designed to go past a certain point, as you are bound to the physical realm, the physical plane of existence. So, are extraterrestrials real? Or, in other words, are there truly any extra terras or extra earths? Extra earths on trial, and my explanation would conclude that no, there are no extra earths. The old world way of seeing extraterrestrial would mean extra beings or things that enter Earth's terrain from the stars. Well, if the upper regions is comprised of the upper waters of Earth, then whatever you think that falls down from above is not truly outside of the realm of Earth. Even if it comes from so-called stars, it is still within the upper planes or existence for this Earth. So even the recorded events within the 19th galaxy of Ilion is indeed still within the domain of the upper regions or the upper covering of Earth. So even if the Anunnaki from the 19th galaxy coming out from the 8th planet of Risk was to travel to this plane, would be considered inner terrestrial beings because they aren't truly from outside of the Earth's domain. They would have to be from out of space. Out of space is still a type of space, just the opposite of in space. So in space are simply things and or beings that have incarnated within and from the earth, the soil, the dirt, the blood, and are consuming space or taking up space. You are in space. You came from out of space. You see? This simply means that before you materialized as anything physical or anything you can total up to a thing or sum up to a being that can materialize and take up space within space, you were in a form of no things, which are things that are still out of space. Things that do not have a sum yet and are transitioning into things that occupy space again, which simply means that you come from out of space. The same goes for so-called beings. This cracks me up, man. I mean, because it's simple. It's right there in your face, but we tend as humans to overcomplicate things. All right. So back on point. The same thing goes for so-called beings that would, arrive here from somewhere like Pluto. All right. They would not be considered extra, right? They would be inner terrestrial travelers because all things as we know it would be considered within and not outside. And if there is a real alien or a real extra being that travels to the earth plane from outside, would be the true creator or of the true creator, the Most High and his host, because if we say that we exist upon a plane of existence enclosed in a net in so-called space, is that covering, that swaddling band created by a loving creator, Father, then the Most High must exist on the outside of the enclosed planet. He must exist in and out of space. Not outer space, but out of space. If he can create it, right? If he created you within, then he must surely be able to move within and without. And if he decides to come within, then he would be a true extra being that's traveling from outside of the lower and upper earth. Outside the lower and the upper regions of Tiamat, or as you know it, earth. And remember, the upper regions of so-called space is simply a covering over the entire earth plane, which is a stable, unmovable earth plane and a sky covering. So the sky is covering the unmovable earth plane, covering it and all living beings on the planet, the living planet, the living and breathing heart from which you owe your life. You, as the Bible states, are from the soil, and the soil contains life. The life that helps shell the soul and spirit is simply a version of soil or soul. If you take out the I of the word soil, you get soul. The I simply identifies the individual, and the you in the word soul identifies you, the individual. Okay, so you have you have soil, which is the physical part of you, and you have soul, which is the spiritual or the non-physical part of you. And you are the individual, or simply you are divided into. All right, and you can clearly see it when you look at their word magic. Individual simply means that you are a dual being, a higher you and a lower you, and they are both one and the same. As above, so below. And as I said in other videos, you are a living soul. The Bible also tells you this. You are a living soul projection of the Most High. You are a dual being living a nine-ether existence, a condensed sunlight experience, a living soul existence, and you reside upon a dual mother plane with an upper and lower region divided, but always as one and the same. As above, so below. There is no other earth. Earth is it. Earth is the soil upon which we came from, and upon which we reside, and upon which we will return. Remember, family, the word plant makes up the greater part of the word planet. Other planets would have to have living plants and natural soil from those plants. Alright? They would have to have natural soil from which those plants can grow into form and beget more life of its kind. Because the soil is the life. And the soil is the earth. And the earth is the life. And she is the mother of all living, which renders her alive. Okay? Planets must be alive. And of course, they must be females. And because they grow, and they're the mothers, and that's what mothers are. They are growers. Otherwise, so-called planets other than Earth are simply, as the ancients would describe them, luminaries. Illuminated lights seen in the sky, wandering luminaries, moving lights. So, are there extra Earths? Well, if you believe that we went to the moon, and if you believe that we have sent rovers and robots to take pictures of the surface of Mars, then the surface of Mars would be an Earth due to its soil. And because Mars doesn't have water or grow plants by way of its soil, then the planet is considered dead. The same thing goes for your so-called moon. If you believe that they have stepped one foot on the moon, then yes, the moon would even be an Earth due to its soil, but it would also be considered dead. Are there other Earths? This plane of existence that you now reside upon is the only plane of existence that you as a human can comprehend. You are of the human species. You only wonder and speculate the existence of other life when all life forms are so abundant here and on this plane of existence. And you speculated, based upon what you were told and made to believe. So when you grow up thinking that the plane you live on is a convex spinning sphere spinning at 1,000+ miles per hour out in a boundless cosmos, yeah, it's quite natural to begin to speculate whether life exists elsewhere. But imagine if you grew up knowing or being taught that the earth is firm and unmovable, not a spinning rock, not spinning around its solar system, and knowing that the sky, also known as the heaven, is quite close, a lot closer than we were taught to believe. You would have no doubts or speculations of whether there were extra Earths sustaining life, as you would know that Earth is it. You would know that you would have a loving and protective Father to place you in a place of protection, where there's a covering to protect you from the upper waters, not to mix with the lower waters, causing destruction upon the races, upon the planet. Okay? You would not even begin to think about it unless someone gave you some knowledge and made you believe that it was true, until you begin to doubt your own good God-given senses. Again, are there other Earths, family? The only Earth is Mother Earth, family. The mother, the birther, the grower, the mother of all living. Peace, family.